one of the things we try at Alpha Warrior before we leave or before we wind anything up is, okay, we talked a lot about many things, whether that's identity or purpose or whatever. Going home tonight, tomorrow, how do we apply this?
Mm-hmm.
How does this change the way you live? How does this enrich your relationship with God? Right now, that's what we're talking about, indwelling with the Lord, which has been the last month has been supernatural. And at some point, we'd love to get into that. And it's, I have completely changed the way I think about God.
Yeah.
And just the last month.
Wow.
And the beginning Alpha Warrior was, I was raised independent Baptist. So I was raised in a very religious hellfire and brimstone church. Not a lot of relationship there. And it's still great church and great people, average age, probably 75, right? Youth group of 3.
Yeah.
But I carried that with me for a long time of an identity that I just never can be enough.
Mm-hmm. So did you have any type of pastoral training, ministry training? This was just purely out of desire.
Completely out of a guttural need for brotherhood and knowing that I can't do this on my own.
Yeah. That
I had Christ, right? But even Christ had 12 brothers he walked through ministry with. Mm-hmm. And I knew that we were, if you go on our website, the very first thing you'll see is you're never alone. Mm. And so many men, the statistics are as many as 90% of men don't have one other man that at 2:00 in the morning they can call and go, hey, I messed up, or I'm in a bar ditch, or I've rolled my car. They don't have somebody to call, and that's terrifying. It's sad, and it's an indictment on Christian men and isolation. Yeah, I truly believe isolation is the number one tool of the enemy. You look at war.
And it's the true pandemic that's come through, really, right, in the past 5 years.
Exactly.
So you were isolated before 2020. Mm-hmm. What did that lead to?
Catastrophe. So I had real estate, really a good real estate company. We made a lot of really good money, and we were very stewardess with it. But then, as you know, in the late 90s, that just fell off the table. Mm-hmm. It was like somebody turned the light switch off and everything stopped. And thank goodness we were good stewards and we had some savings. And I had taught economics. I have an MBA, and I taught economics, and I knew that average recession is about 9 months to 12 months. So we'll hang on. Well, 12 months later, eating and living out of savings, it had gotten no better. Oh, wow. So we knew we were going to have to close the business, and I'm praying, and I'm just thinking, God, what's next? And this overwhelming desire to be a ministry. And I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do. Because I have uncles and people in ministry, and then people that said, don't do it. Don't do it. Mm-hmm. It's tough. It's hard. It's lonely. And so I wanted to use my business knowledge to help the church. And I thought, what about an executive pastor? I didn't know anybody around, so I reached out to my pastor at the time. And he goes, well, as a matter of fact, one of the fastest growing churches in the nation is in need of an executive pastor. The only problem is it's in St. Louis, Missouri. Mm. Well, our kids, went to the Christian school here. They were entrenched. They only knew this area. And I thought, that's never going to happen. So long story short is we put out 7 fleeces. Thought we had God trapped in a box. There's no way we're going to St. Louis. Yeah. Well, you know how that worked out, right? We sold our house for full price in the worst real estate market. The people literally pulled up at our front door and said, we want your house. How much is it? I mean, crazy things that had I not experienced, I would have never believed it. Right. Even to the point where our kids go, yeah, we want to move to St. Louis. And we're like, all of your friends are here. You play football here. You're in dance here. I mean, it was only God, right? Mm. So we went, and it was not a good experience. Mm. The church was not a church of integrity. I'll just leave it at that. And I really got exposed to the ugly side of church, and found some things that were going on that weren't right. Brought them up, excuse me. And for the first time in my career, at 40, was fired. Wow. Never been fired before in my life. Had only
let
excelled
alone from a church, right?
And from a church, right? So we had moved to St. Louis. Obviously, we didn't have a lot of money left over because we spent it all keeping the business open, spent it all moving. So here we are in a city we know no one. Haven't even made our first house payment. And I don't have a job. I go file unemployment, and and Missouri says, well, you haven't lived here a year, so you don't qualify. So I go file employment, which I'd never done before in my life. In Oklahoma, they go, you don't live in Oklahoma, you don't qualify.
Oh
We had nothing. For the first time in my life, we had nothing. We didn't know how we're going to buy groceries. And I'd never been in that position. With 2 kids that I'd moved thousands of miles away from everybody they know and their family. And I'm like, God, what have you done to me? Why? What did I do to deserve this? Right? I mean, I found a small group of men that were meeting that was CBRE in St. Louis, Missouri. To this day, I owe them so much. And I just was vulnerable, told them my story. And I called up my mortgage company to tell them I can't make my first mortgage payment. And they said, somebody's made it for you.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where we were. You talk about humbling.
Yeah.
From a real estate conglomerate, having 5 or 6 subdivisions in the Oklahoma City area, making good money, not mega rich or anything like that, but not worrying about money, to, honey, how are we going to buy groceries? In the span of a couple of years. And in my mind, I felt it was because we went in ministry. So
did you feel like you misheard God, or maybe that God, all those signs of the people buying your house so fast actually wasn't God? Is there a lot of doubt in that?
A lot of doubt. And that doubt turned to anger. And that's what got me. So, here I was, 6'1", 280 pound, competitive athlete, former operator that was living in anger. I just wanted somebody to pull in front of me. I mean, I was looking for outlets to let this anger go. And that's not my personality. I'm not a mean person, but I became one. That anger just ate at me and ate at me. I ended up, a lady that was in the church that we were at called me up and she goes, hey, I haven't seen you at church. What's up? And so I told her, and she goes, well, give me your resume. I have a business to business. And I know a lot of CEOs. And when I sent it to her, she goes, you have a master's degree? And I said, yeah. She says, I want to hire you. So she hired me.
Oh, wow.
Sat in a cubicle, humbling, right? But it was a learning experience. And it was really it was an amazing way of God providing, but I didn't see it that way. I said, wow, here I am, former business owner, and I'm sitting in a cubicle. Really, God, what did I do? Right? And it was the wrong way to look at it, looking back. So I have this anger. And as I got angry, my wife, understandably now, pulls away, because who wants to be around an angry man all the time, right? So she's protecting herself. Well, as she pulled away, so did I. And we get in this, this perpetual cycle of isolation. And in that point, I thought, how the enemy plants things in your head, right? Well, God doesn't love me, or he wouldn't have done this to me. My wife doesn't love me anymore because she won't even hardly talk to me. I must be unlovable.
That's a big agreement.
Yeah. So the first time somebody showed me what I thought was love, it was like a June bug to lightning. Wow. And I had an affair. And then there's this massive amount of guilt, because I'm an extremely disciplined person. Like I said, athlete, other things, very, very disciplined. How could have I let myself get in this situation? It's compounded because my wife and I were unable to have children. So both of our children that we love to death, well, one's 23 in the Air Force in Japan, and the other one's 21 and starting her own career, been blessed beyond. But we weren't able to have our own, our biological children. And this lady I had an affair with became pregnant. Well, there's no way, it's not me. I'm incapable of having children. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in Houston, Texas, when we lived there, trying to have children, and, insurance and other things, not just our money, but in Houston being the mecca of fertility. And the doctor looked at us and said, you will never have children. So now this lady that I had a very short tenure with is pregnant. I go, it's not mine. And we had a blood test, and yeah, it is.
Wow.
How does this happen? God, what else? What else? And it came up to coming up to New Year's and Christmas of that year. And I said, I will not live this life another year. I'm going to tell my wife. She knew, but I think deep down, but I'm going to tell her, and we'll probably get divorced, and I'll be that guy, right? Living in those apartments with all the other divorced dads, right? And here we go. But I will not live this way. So I waited till Christmas, so I didn't run Christmas. But before New Year's, I started to tell her a couple of times, and I chickened out. And finally sat down at the coffee table and told her, and then absolutely told her the absolute wrong way. And I took a picture that was on my phone of a little boy that was now 4 months old. Oh. And I slid it across the table, and I said, and he's mine. So here's a woman that's been married at this point, almost 20 years, has been just the most amazing woman, gift of God that I could ask for. Beautiful. We were competitive athletes together. We were both bodybuilders, and we competed in the same shows, and it just had an amazing life, storybook. She stood by me, even when we lost our companies or whatever, she would say, if we have to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, as long as we're together, we're fine. And I have done this. And so the guilt and the shame and the ramifications, and so we sought wise counsel, and we sought a marriage counselor, then also a counselor. Because I knew there was something in me that caused me to do this. I wanted to root that out and kill it, and whatever it was. So we went to Insight Ministries with Bob and LaRue McDaniels, and who they no longer do it, but again, but God.
Yeah.
And everybody we know that was in our situation had gotten divorced, right? And lost everything. And so I remember Bob asking my wife, said, do you want us to be married? And she goes, I do. And I'm like, you do? To me? Why would you want to be married to me? Look what I've done.
You're unlovable.
I'm unlovable. Yeah. So that made me realize maybe I wasn't unlovable, and maybe this is all a lie. And started to really dig into the lies of the enemy and what that causes, the isolation that I allowed myself to get into because I was unlovable. So if I was unlovable, nobody wants to be my friend. It goes down I say a flushing that doesn't end if you don't get out of it, right? The old adage, if you're at the bottom of the well, stop digging, right? And so we started to turn our marriage around and learned that it was, all about communication, all about, nothing to prove, nothing to hide, and nothing to fear. So on those three things, which are three tenets of Alpha Warrior, imagine that, was I don't have anything to prove. So it doesn't matter what I drive. It doesn't matter what my body looks like. I don't have anything to prove.
You're not getting validation.
Not getting validation to anybody, but Jesus and my marriage, not validation, but the health of that as the leader of my family, spiritual leader. Nothing to hide. So my wife I don't worry with my phone when she picks up my phone to look calendar. I have absolutely nothing to hide. There's no picture, no website, nothing. And that helps me hold myself accountable that I don't ever want to go back to that and I know there are guys going to listen to this, like, I can't believe your wife has all your passwords, access to your telephone. I said, in my world, I can't believe she doesn't.
Yeah.
I will not live that life.
Was
again.
pornography an issue in those seasons?
It had been, yeah.
Because
I'm unlovable, right?
Yeah.
I'm unlovable. So who wants me? Right?
Yeah. During that time of being unlovable, isolation, what place did God have in your life? I know there was some frustration with but were you guys still involved in church? Did you still have disciplines you were following?
It's amazing the dichotomies we can live in. But yeah, we were still going to church, and I had I didn't want to do mega church ever again because I'd seen the sausage being made and I thought they were all like that.
Yeah.
They're not. Okay. So we were looking at small churches, and I knew that I needed God. I just wasn't sure if I was worthy of him anymore. All right. And because I was still unlovable. Right?
Yeah.
And how could a righteous, perfect, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God love me
Yeah.
and the crap that I've created? Right.
Mm.
And the amazing thing he did, and he never stopped. It was a lie from the enemy that convinced me that I can tell you now, I've driven twice to St. Louis since then for business and other things. And I've touched the telephone pole I almost ran my truck into 3 times. Think, hey, I still have my $1 million life insurance policy from my business. My wife and my kids would be much better off without me. The lie from the enemy. That's where he'll take you if you let him.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are many people listening to this podcast.
That's exactly what I was
that are
going to
either
say.
there now or have been there.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that's a lie from the pit of hell.
Yeah. Yeah. You are so much more valuable to your family than any life insurance policy could ever provide for. So thanks for going there. Thanks for sharing that. And so how long would you say, so the affair happens, or whenever you admit it to your wife and you guys are going through that, how much intensive were you going through? Did it last years? Was it a few months of intensives as far as like seeking counseling and all that?
Mm-hmm. So we did counseling, the 2 counselors, the marriage counselor and the I guess you call it psychology counseling, but it's Christian. And we still send everyone to him today from Alpha Warrior, because I trust him, obviously. That was a good 6 months of 2 to 3 times a week. Because I told my wife, I said, I will do whatever it takes to make this work. If you're willing to love me, an unlovable person, if you're willing to stay, which I still at that point couldn't believe she did. Yeah. If you're willing to walk through this with me, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And when we're talking to guys that are at that level, I said, you're going to have to get in your marriage to a point of whatever it takes, for her to feel safe and secure, which is her number one need as a woman. And then talking to the woman, you have to do whatever it takes to make him feel honored, because that's our number one. The Bible tells us that.